Hello. So today I'm going to talk about loving people, loving Muslims for the sake of Allah. So what does this mean? So going on to this current trend in society, there's this need to make as many friends as you can, where for example in social media, one could strive to get as many followers, or one could strive to get as many networks from people as much as possible, and just to get known by people. That could be one of the goals that is in a society, and people could get into that flow of needing and wanting more and more people within their circle. But in Islam, there's this contradiction where in Islam, there's this one whole ummah, and Muslims strive to be friends within that ummah. Not that we are picky with people and then we're judgy, but that we make sure that our circle is what Allah is pleased with. So even in our friend groups, we strive with that. And even if we're not known much about people, but if we make the most out of our inner circle, then that's really sufficient. That's really enough for us. Because in Judgment Day, in the Quran, it was said that close friends will be enemies to one another on that day, except the God-fearing. In addition, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, "No man loves a people, but that he will be resurrected with them." So what I mean by that is that these Muslims strive to have a friend group that Allah is pleased with, and a friend group that they're pleased with when they're resurrected together with that friend group. So to take a look in our circle and to see whether they're likely to go to hellfire, may Allah protect us from hellfire, or they're resembling the people of Jannah, the people of paradise. So upon this reflection, this makes us think more about our friend group and about the friends and about our surroundings. There are a lot of beautiful rewards that are received by loving each other for the sake of Allah, such as shaded by Allah, shade on the Day of Judgment. And their faces will be luminous and they will be upon light. And they will feel no fear when the people are feeling fear, and they will feel no grief when the people will be grieving. So there's a lot of beautiful rewards from having this type of friendship, and it's really encouraged. But on the other side, it's not as easy as it seems to have friends like these. There will be also trials and tribulations inside these friendships. So this goes to those Muslims who may be in these trials. When we're friends with these people, we're going into their life, and with that, we can see many aspects and many versions of themselves. Most importantly, we see their growth. The hard pill to swallow is that they might not be in the same growth as we're in. They might not be in the same level. They might be far ahead, meanwhile we just started, or vice versa. And this is the beauty, that regardless of where we are in faith, if they haven't worn the hijab, or if they just started and are interested in Islam, and that still counts as loving each other for the sake of Allah and teaching them more about it. And maybe that we're friends with them and then we get to see their growth, meaning we get to see them falter at times. And this could lead us to disappointment because they're not like the picture perfect Muslim as we imagined. And most likely they're not, because we're not perfect, right? So one of the key reflections that I found from this is that maybe the purpose of us getting to see them being in their growth and them slipping away, is that maybe we could be the ones that see the holes and then remind them. Not in the sense that we're the ones who are always pointing fingers on them, but we're the one who's giving guidance gently and just reminding them of the deen and what they faltered on. Maybe they're not aware of it, And so we're there to make them aware. So maybe that's one of the purpose where Allah has put us with that people, with that person. There are many responses that we could have in reaction to the times when they falter. It could lead us to disappointment. And second, it could lead us to an opportunity we could take to give guidance to them. It's human to feel disappointed and to have these sorts of emotions. And one of the things that I will always tell myself is to learn to forgive them. Maybe we're hurt because we felt betrayed, that they're not a picture perfect Muslim. We have to learn to forgive. And not that they have done something wrong, that they have wronged us, but that just to have our hearts be at ease and to look at them more lovingly. And second, when we do learn to forgive, and then we can start to give guidance. So this process really needs patience. Even us, if we do look at ourselves, when Muslims, when we're in this station, we're not in the station like drastically, right? It takes a process. And being friends with Muslims takes a process. And there needs to be patience in that. So we're being with them step by step. Even if we always remind them and then it doesn't work, still remind ourselves that Allah is the mover of hearts, and it's up to Allah whether He will move their hearts and lead them and guide them. So the second insight I got from the journey of loving people for the sake of Allah is loneliness. Because we could define loneliness as not being with people at the moment. And there's actually a wisdom behind feeling lonely, because even Muslims could feel lonely at times. And there is this one insight that I got, that maybe Allah puts away certain people so that it could make space for the remembrance of Allah to enter. So maybe it's for us to ponder more about Allah and to realize the parts of us that still yearn for other people. We could ask ourselves, why are we feeling lonely? What do we need from people so that we could relieve our loneliness? What parts of us are yearning for people? And with that could make us realize the parts that still depend on other people. And then when we do notice that, we could shift that dependency to Allah. Because Allah is the one who provides, and Allah is the cure to our loneliness, ultimately. Now, going on to loving people for the sake of Allah, there's an interesting dynamic, because even if they're not with each other in the moment, they might not just get lonely. They don't depend on each other 24/7 because they depend on Allah, right? But that they have this hope in their hearts to meet with one another in paradise. So even if they're not together, they're still connected with their hearts, and they're still connected with Allah, and that connects them both. So there's always this imagination where they're gonna reunite with that person and they're gonna have fun in paradise, and may Allah make us amongst them. Amen. So that's the beauty, that these believers have hope that they reunite with one another in the hereafter. The last one, it's in regards to dawah. I know I said loving Muslims and being friends with the right people, but that doesn't mean to not be loving to other people who are not Muslim. Even if I said it's good to love people for the sake of Allah, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be a source of love to every creature that Allah has made. Even if they're not believers, that doesn't mean that we should be judgy with them and that we should hate them. That's totally different. And with that, there's always this interesting insight from Secrets of Divine Love by At Helwa, that when we do meet with people, be a reflection of Allah's loving divine qualities. Allah is the most kind. So we could reflect this name to other people and be kind as best as we can. And when Allah is the most loving, then we reflect that by being loving to everyone. And that will be a part of calling people to Islam too, through kindness and through our lovingness. So it's encouraged to love Muslims for the sake of Allah and to be wise in our inner circle, but that doesn't mean it restricts our inner circle, that we don't welcome other people who wants to know more about the deen, and that we become so restrictive and judgy about other people based on our assumptions. But that no, we're still welcoming and that we're still expressing our lovingness to anyone and expressing our kindness to anyone. Even Allah is the most loving and Allah is the most kind, so we should reflect that to anyone too. So for the summary, I talked about the journey of loving Muslims for the sake of Allah, and I mainly talked about this concept of love and how this could create a purposeful inner circle of friends. And I expressed like the strong love that exists in this ummah, that despite trials or tribulations, we're still with them and that we still forgive and always be patient in giving guidance to them. And how this type of love could cure one's loneliness. Not in the sense that depends with people, but depend on Allah and trust in the hereafter that they could reunite with them later on in paradise by Allah's permission. And this concept of love not being restricted to only Muslims, but that we should be a representation of love as well to other people who are not Muslim too, and always be welcoming to everyone. So that's what I want to end on. I hope it benefits. Salam and thank you.